Have you heard what happened to Solo Sikoa on SmackDown? It will shock you. WWE Men's United States Champion Solo Sikoa was arrested during WWE SmackDown after an apparent car crash. The episode started with an accident just outside the arena which left Solo Sikoa and the rest of his faction in shock. SmackDown General Manager Adam Pearce was stunned with the entire incident, and Tonga Loa even had an injury on his forehead. Solo Sikoa was quick to point the finger at Jacob Fatu and accused him of causing the accident. However, by the end of the night, it was Solo Sikoa who was arrested inside the arena after it emerged that he faked the entire accident. What if I told you that the most dangerous moment in WWE didn't happen inside the ring? What if the betrayal that shook the WWE universe didn't come from a chair shot, a title theft, or a backstage ambush? But from a perfectly staged illusion, a lie wrapped in chaos, orchestrated not by an outsider, but by the very man holding one of the company's most prestigious championships? What happened on WWE SmackDown wasn't just a car crash. It wasn't just an arrest. It was a crack in the foundation of one of the most dominant forces in recent WWE history, a fracture in the bloodline that not even the tribal chief himself could have seen coming. The United States Champion, Solo Sikoa, was arrested live inside the arena. And the story behind it? It's darker, more calculated, and more shocking than anyone expected. Because Solo Sikoa didn't just get caught up in a freak accident. He faked it. And in doing so, he betrayed his family, weaponized trust, and tried to destroy the man who had once called him brother. But before we break it all down, before we show you exactly how this entire scandal unraveled from the first screech of tires to the final clink of handcuffs, we have to rewind. Because if you really want to understand what went down at SmackDown, you have to know what was brewing in the shadows long before the cameras caught the crash. It started quietly. Subtly. The kind of tension you don't hear in interviews or see in highlight reels, but you feel in every glance, every backstage segment, every unscripted hesitation. Solo Sikoa, once the unflinching enforcer of Roman Reigns, had changed. He wasn't just walking with purpose anymore, he was walking alone. When Roman Reigns stepped away, taking time to recover and reassess after internal betrayals split the bloodline at its core, Solo didn't just take the reins. He took control. He seized the moment. The United States Championship wasn't just a belt to Solo, it was a symbol. A symbol that he didn't need Roman. He didn't need Heyman. And most importantly, he didn't need Jacob Fatu. But Jacob? Jacob Fatu had arrived with fire. A wrecking ball of a man who fought with purpose and loyalty. When he stood with Jimmy Uso and Tama Tonga, many thought he'd fall in line behind Solo. But instead, Jacob became something more dangerous, something Solo hadn't planned for. He became beloved. And that's where the trouble began. Inside the locker room, people started whispering. Did you see the pop Jacob got last week? Why didn't Solo help when Jacob was jumped? Are they still bloodline, or just blood? To the fans, it was subtle. To management, it was concerning. But to Solo Sikoa? It was war. And in Solo's mind, there was only one solution: eliminate the threat. Not in a match. Not in a title bout. But in reputation. What happened on that Friday night was not an accident. It was a play. A performance. A setup so carefully orchestrated that even the SmackDown broadcast team couldn't keep up. The night began like any other. Fans poured into the arena. Commentators teased upcoming matches. The bloodline was set to address the WWE Universe. But just minutes before the first segment, everything stopped. A car crash. Not near the ring. Not in the parking garage. Outside the arena. The chaos was instant. Sirens. Security sprinting. Camera scrambling. One car, badly damaged. Smoke rising. And inside that wreckage? Solo Sikoa. Blood on his forehead. Shaken. Speechless. Beside him, the stunned forms of Bloodline allies, Tonga Loa, clinging to consciousness, and another member waving down help. The broadcast cut to a WWE logo. No commentary. No explanation. Just a chilling silence. And when the show resumed? The mood had shifted. Fans were asking questions. Social media exploded. Is Solo okay? Was Jacob Fatu involved? Who was in the second car? And then, Solo made his move. Covered in blood, eyes wide with rage, he stormed through the arena doors, not to a medic, not to a trainer, but to Adam Pearce. And he pointed a finger. It was Jacob. He did this. Pearce, visibly rattled, ordered an investigation. But even then, something didn't feel right. Jacob Fatu, scheduled for a tag match that night, arrived minutes later. Calm. Confused. Not a scratch on him. Security held him back. Solo demanded he be suspended. Pearce promised answers. The night went on, but the air inside that building was electric with suspicion. Something was off. Backstage reports said Tonga Loa's head wound didn't match the angle of the crash. A WWE production truck driver noted seeing Solo walk across the lot before the wreck. And later that night, leaked audio from a ringside mic captured a chilling line. Don't worry, it'll look real enough. But still, nothing could have prepared the audience for what happened in the third hour of the show. Just as Solo prepared to cut a promo backstage, two uniformed officers approached him. He laughed, at first, thinking it was a segment. Then came the cuffs. Then came the silence. And then came the truth. WWE security footage showed Solo exiting the arena's back lot minutes before the crash. Tonga Loa was with him, seemingly acting confused. The second car involved? A parked, camera-rigged WWE vehicle. The crash wasn't a freak event. It was a staged attack. Why? To frame Jacob Fatu. To make him the villain. To remove him from title contention. To manipulate the narrative. Solo Sikoa wasn't the victim of a hit and run. He was the director of a show, one meant to fool the fans, the company, and the entire Bloodline legacy. And he almost got away with it. But a single anonymous tip, and a parking lot security feed, ruined everything. Now, the United States champion faces legal consequences. His title reign hangs in the balance. Tonga Loa remains in medical evaluation. Adam Pearce is under fire for not stopping the storyline sooner. And Jacob Fatu? He hasn't spoken. Not yet. But when he does, WWE may never be the same. Because this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a declaration. A declaration that the war inside the Bloodline isn't over. It's only just begun. And now, as the WWE Universe tries to make sense of what happened, one question lingers louder than all the others. What happens when family fakes war to win power? SmackDown had never felt more volatile. The arena was alive with energy, thousands of fans chanting, signs waving through the air, the smell of pyro smoke still lingering from the show's cold open. But backstage? Backstage, something was off. You could feel it in the stillness. Not the good kind, the anticipatory quiet before a big match. This was different. Tense. Like a storm waiting to break. The kind of atmosphere where eye contact meant more than words, and the wrong glance could spark a fight. Solo Sikoa walked into the building that night not as a member of a family, but as a man with a mission. The United States Championship sat firmly around his waist, yet there was no pride in his posture. No fire in his eyes. Just calculation. Cold, steady calculation. As he passed by lighting techs and security staff, none dared to stop him. The enforcer energy he carried was no longer masked by quiet loyalty. There was no Roman Reigns around to soften his image. No Paul Heyman to explain his silence. Solo Sikoa had become something else. A shadow of his former self, but one capable of fire. Earlier in the day, footage showed him arriving alone. No entourage. No Jimmy Uso. No Fatu. Just the champion. Dressed in all black. Hoodie up. Eye scanning every corner of the loading dock. And yet, there was no alarm. To the production team, this was just Solo being Solo. Reserved. Detached. Focused. But to Adam Pearce, something didn't sit right. The general manager of SmackDown had been dealing with subtle headaches for weeks, miscommunications, aggressive backstage outbursts, even unapproved interviews from certain members of the Bloodline's extended family. And it all pointed back to one thing. Control. Solo had been trying to control the narrative. And Pearce had noticed. "I've seen this before," Pearce had told a senior producer that morning. "This isn't just storyline tension. This is real. They're turning on each other." At the time, it felt like just another backstage squabble. WWE thrives on tension. From Stone Cold and Vince McMahon to the Shield's implosion, rivalries are the currency of wrestling. But this wasn't scripted. And that night, unlike other nights, Jacob Fatu hadn't arrived yet. His flight had landed late. Traffic around the venue was snarled because of ongoing construction just outside the city. And that delay, that unfortunate, unpredictable delay, would prove to be the perfect opportunity for something sinister. But let's not jump ahead. The evening kicked off with a standard SmackDown segment lineup, a tag team championship rematch, a women's division face-off, and a Bloodline promo scheduled for hour 2. Solo was set to address the WWE Universe regarding his successful title defense from the previous week, alongside Tonga Loa, Jimmy Uso, and if timing allowed, Jacob Fatu. But here's where things took a turn. Hours before the live broadcast, Solo requested a meeting with Tonga Loa. Not in the locker room. Not in the production hallway. But in the garage. Security cameras captured the two men talking intensely behind a black SUV. Their body language was sharp, rhythmic, Solo pointing, Tonga shaking his head, then reluctantly nodding. There was no audio. But their faces said everything. This wasn't a planning session. It was a demand. Some say Tonga Loa had been falling deeper under Solo's influence in recent weeks. While Jacob Fatu had emerged as the emotional center of this fractured faction, Tonga remained the loyalist. The bruiser who followed orders. And perhaps, the perfect accomplice. According to one WWE staffer who passed the lot that day, Solo looked haunted. He wasn't pacing, they later recalled. He was plotting. Like something was already done and he was just waiting for it to play out. Inside the locker room, whispers were beginning to grow. Jacob Fatu's absence was noted. Did he skip town? Is he really part of the Bloodline anymore? Maybe Solo forced him out. The truth? Jacob had texted multiple crew members, apologizing for his delay. He had even sent a voice note to Adam Pearce confirming he was just 15 minutes away. But by then, the countdown had already started. At precisely 7:42 p.m., less than 20 minutes before airtime, a low rumble was heard outside the arena's south entrance. A bang. A screech. A deafening crash. At first, no one panicked. WWE shows often include sound effects, rehearsals, pyrotechnic tests. But when a backstage production assistant ran through the hallway yelling, "Call 911," everything changed. Adam Pearce sprinted toward the lot. Medical staff were pulled from prep. Commentary notes were dropped mid-scripting. Everyone, headed for the lot. And there, crumpled against a barrier, was a black SUV. Its windshield shattered. Its front right tire mangled. Smoke curled into the air like a horror film. Inside the vehicle? Tonga Loa, blood streaming from a gash on his temple. And next to him, barely moving, Solo Sikoa. Or at least, that's what it looked like. It was chaos. Paramedics pulled Solo from the passenger seat. His hoodie soaked in red. His mouth slack. And then, his eyes opened. He didn't ask for help. He asked for Jacob. "Where's Jacob?" he growled. "He did this. He hit us." And in that moment, the night stopped being a wrestling show and became a crime scene. But one thing would become clear, eventually. This crash wasn't about injury. It wasn't about conflict. It was a performance. A setup. A trap. And Solo Sikoa had just stepped into the most dangerous storyline of his life, one that wasn't written by a WWE scriptwriter, but by his own hand. By the end of the night, the truth would unravel in front of millions. But right now, the curtain was just rising. And no one was ready. It happened so fast. And yet, so deliberately. The moment that would go on to define an entire episode of SmackDown, perhaps even an entire era of WWE, unfolded in under 30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds of twisted metal, smoke, and a well-timed scream. A moment engineered not by chaos, but by calculation. Not by chance, but by design. The crash was loud. But the silence that followed? That was deafening. It began as ambient noise, an echo outside the arena. Just before the second hour of SmackDown, as the cameras were seconds away from rolling into the next backstage interview, it came. Screech. Crash. Pop. The sound tore through the loading dock and rippled into the concrete walls of the backstage corridors. You could see crew members freeze mid-conversation. A production assistant screamed. Someone dropped their headset. One of the pyrotechs cursed and looked up from his clipboard. Was that a gunshot? No. It was something else. Something worse. Within moments, backstage turned into a frenzy. Someone from security radioed Adam Pearce. Vehicle collision. South entrance. 2 down. Possible injuries. And suddenly, the focus of the night had changed. Forget the promos. Forget the scheduled main event. Forget even the storyline between the Bloodline factions. This wasn't kayfabe. Not yet, anyway. Fans at home didn't know what was going on. But backstage? It was chaos. Cameras weren't rolling yet, not officially. But WWE cameramen are trained to respond like first responders. If something happens, get it on film. Don't ask questions. Don't look for direction. Just record. And that's exactly what they did. Footage exists, raw, uncut, of the first responders approaching the vehicle. A black SUV, the driver's side crushed inward, steam gushing from the hood. One of the back doors was partially open, swinging in the wind. Inside the vehicle, you can see Solo Sikoa slumped over, blood trailing down the left side of his face. His breathing appears labored. His eyes closed. Tonga Loa, seated next to him, is hunched forward. Blood is visible from a deep gash just above his left eye. His forehead had struck something, possibly the dashboard or the interior pillar. One of the medics shouts, "We need more light," as another worker lifts a flashlight, revealing the shattered glass and warped frame. The eerie part? There's no other vehicle. Only one SUV. No second car. No apparent impactor. And that should have been the first red flag. But in the heat of the moment, no one was looking for logic. They were responding to fear. Responding to danger. Responding to what they thought was real. Adam Pearce arrived seconds later. He had sprinted from the gorilla position, headset still around his neck, shirt untucked. You can hear his voice on the tape. "Is everyone okay? What happened? Was this an accident?" A production runner whispers something to him, something about Solo mumbling a name. Pierce's head snaps up. Who? And then he hears it, through the confusion, through the haze of noise and panic, Solo Sikoa's voice. Broken. raspy, filled with rage. Jacob, he did this, it was him. Pierce's expression goes still. No way, he mutters. But in this world, in WWE, allegiances shift like shadows. And a name spoken in crisis is enough to set fire to an empire. Solo is lifted onto a stretcher. Medics begin treating the head wound, applying gauze and prepping him for transport. Tonga Loa, though shaken, refuses medical treatment at first. He pushes the medic aside, stands on unsteady legs, and mutters, "Fatu, that bastard, he set us up." And just like that, the match was no longer about gold. It was about vengeance. SmackDown was now less a wrestling show and more a ticking time bomb of suspicion. Inside the arena, fans remained in the dark. The Titantron had gone black. Commentary had been cut. The arena was filled with murmurs, pockets of confusion. Then, suddenly, cameras resumed. But instead of a flashy promo package or a pre-taped interview, viewers were met with something that immediately raised eyebrows. A shaky live shot of Adam Pearce storming backstage. And walking toward him, fists clenched, a bruised and bloodied Solo Sikoa. The audience gasped. This wasn't normal. The cameraman didn't even bother stabilizing the frame, because this wasn't performance. This was raw, unfiltered panic. Pearce confronts Solo, "Are you sure it was Jacob?" Solo doesn't hesitate. "I saw his truck. I saw his damn face. He was waiting. He targeted us. He knew we'd be there. He tried to take me out." The drama was electric. Commentary returned, Michael Cole struggling to piece the scene together for the TV audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the confusion. We just witnessed what appears to be a vehicular accident outside the arena involving United States champion Solo Sikoa and Bloodline member Tonga Loa. Solo is claiming that Jacob Fatu was involved in some sort of hit and run. It was the kind of segment that blurred reality. And that was exactly what Solo Sikoa wanted. Because he knew something the rest of them didn't. There was no second vehicle. There was no impactor. There was no Jacob Fatu. There was only Solo. And the plan. Later, new footage emerged from a fan who had been tailgating just outside the south entrance, someone who had captured the lead-up to the crash. It shows the black SUV parked in a corner of the lot, with no one else around. And then, suddenly, it accelerates. Directly into a concrete barrier. No other car involved. No driver seen fleeing. Just, the crash. The fan video had no sound. But it had something better, the truth. But WWE didn't see this footage yet. Not during the show. Not until it was far too late. What they did have, though, were whispers. Questions. Inconsistencies. Why didn't anyone see Jacob Fatu at the arena gates? Why was Solo conscious, but refusing a hospital ride? Why was Tonga Loa's head injury so superficial? And why, in a night of supposed tragedy, did Solo Sikoa insist on cutting a live promo just an hour after the crash? Because Solo wasn't a victim. He was an architect. The screeching tires were never an accident. They were an announcement. A declaration of dominance. A smokescreen to rewrite reality. A perfectly crafted act of deception. And that night, Solo nearly pulled it off. But what he didn't count on, what no manipulator ever sees coming, is the weight of truth. Because somewhere, behind the curtain, behind the panic, behind the flashing lights of police cruisers arriving late to the scene, there were eyes.